What's up YouTube, Zero here, and today I'm coming at you with another build video in Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning. This time I'm doing a combination of the Might and Finesse trees. So if you do not like magic, this is going to be the tree for you. If you think Doctor Strange is just a psycho lunatic, this is going to be the build for you. So before I get into it, I do want to say that if you do enjoy this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. For more Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning content, I also do a bunch of other video games, so check those out as well. I do really thank you so much and appreciate it in advance. So before we get into the Destiny and abilities, we gotta finish these dudes off. They are trying to attack me with their spears, and I got my great sword. We're previewing the build a little bit. Y'all saw my frost traps. Y'all are gonna see the harpoon, and y'all see the great sword. There's the harpoon. I feel like Scorpion in here. But we finished them off, so let's get into our destiny, which is the Avenger destiny. It requires 25 might and 25 finesse, but we're going to get an increase to melee attack damage, an increase to ranged attack damage, a chance to critical hit, an increase to that, plus 7%, and then an increase to piercing damage as well. So now let's go into the abilities and start out on the might tree. So of course, the harpoon, our scorpion move, get over here, which is definitely awesome and combines with frost trap in the finesse tree. Then I have skillful defense, which is plus 30% damage mitigation while blocking, and if you time it correctly, you also get a shield bash move. Then we're gonna upgrade that to Hardy Constitution, which increase health and elemental resistance. Then Adrenaline Surge, kind of a fail-safe. It has a 70% chance to trigger when our health falls below 25%, restores health, and gives us increased damage. Then I'm going to increase the damage of my greatsword. I use the greatsword a lot, so that's pretty important. And then Concussive Force, which gives us plus 60% damage versus stunned enemies. So we're gonna try and stun our enemies. Then let's just take a look at Shadow Flare, which I love using. Throws out some dust and then a bunch of daggers. Have a chance to deal bleed damage, which is awesome and can definitely help out against a group of enemies. Then I'm going into Longbow Mastery just to get to draw power, and then the next one that we'll talk in a little bit, this area, draw power, is going to increase the damage of my bows. Eventually, I'll go back into that first area, but not right now. In a later level, I will. And then Envenomed Edge, which is going to give me poison damage. It is a sustained mana cost. And then, of course, Frost Trap. Y'all know me. Y'all know I love Frost Trap. Freezing people, putting it down, and then dragging them over with the harpoon that I'll talk about in a little. And this is just an upgrade to Frost Trap. It's going to be giving us more damage and has a 40% chance to stun. And then Arrow Storm, where you can draw back your bow and unleash a storm inside of an area and do a bunch of damage to enemies. So now that we've gone over what we're using, let's talk about why we're using what we're using. So the Frost Trap combined with Harpoon is obvious. I've talked about this before. Depending on the enemy, as long as they're a smaller enemy, you can actually lay the Frost Trap down and then harpoon them, our Scorpion move, get over here, over our Frost Trap, and then do that frost damage. You did the harpoon damage, and then if you get that chance to stun, hopefully you do, you're also going to be dealing that stun damage, because remember, we have that increased damage to stunned enemies. So upgrading the Frost Trap to have a 40% chance to stun enemies is going to help us damage them even more. I also have a bunch of passive abilities on this build. Why? Because it helps me out defensively, and it's also, some of them are increasing the damage I'm dealing with some of my weapons or some of my abilities. So I just love Shadow Strike in general, throwing out that dust and those daggers because it deals a bunch of damage to a large group of enemies. Sometimes we're gonna be facing large group of enemies, and while the Frost Trap is going to be able to slow down some of those enemies, we're not always going to be able to deal that damage to those enemies. So like sometimes I'm gonna have to just slow down an enemy and get lucky and hit them. Other times I'm just doing it to slow down an enemy with Frost Trap. And then I can use my Shadow Strike to hit the group of enemies. So On top of this, I'm also doing the chance to poison because I want to deal that damage over time. I want to try and deal that bleeding damage. I want to try and deal that poison damage to whittle down my enemies. The combination of the greatsword and the longbow gives me the opportunity to do ranged fights as well as close quarter combat. The thing is, there are some enemies that you just don't want to get near, which is why I'll use my bow against them. And then there are other enemies where I'll just use my greatsword because my greatsword deals a ton of damage. But the longbow is going to be able to quickly hit some enemies, deal a little bit of damage, and maybe if you're lucky, get a poison or bleed on them. But if not, then you can just go in for the kill with the greatsword, or if they are an enemy that just you don't want to get up on, there are a couple of them, that you can use the bow as well. One of the drawbacks of this, again, there are no magic. We don't have any magic, so we don't have the shock. We don't have any fire unless you get a sword or bow that deals that damage right now, at least with this build. So that can be a drawback. We're not dealing that extra fire damage to enemies that are weak to it. And I know that our shock ability on the mage tree also has a great chance of stunning enemies. So we're not doing that as well. We're relying on other things to stun our enemies, such as the frost trap, kind of slowing them down like I did there, so I can attack this mountain troll and beat him into submission. So we are coming down to the end of the video, but what do y'all think of this build? Do you like combining might and finesse, or are there other builds in this game that you prefer? Let me know in the comments section which builds you prefer in this game and why. So again, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Check out some of my other videos. Till next time, peace.